Okay guys, it's Miss Johnson here, and I'm here to bring you our notes for Unit 4 Notes 3, which is on factoring trinomials. So that's our learning target for today. I can factor trinomials. Up at the top, our first couple examples are just going to review factoring by grouping. So we just want to have a little reminder of how we factored by grouping. When we were factoring by grouping, we had 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember that terms are separated by addition and subtraction. So we have 4 of them there. So what we did is we grouped the first 2 and then grouped the last 2 and pulled out the GCF of each group. So from the first group here, I can take out a 5 and a y, and that leaves me with y minus 3. 15 divided by 5 is 3, and the y's cancel out. From the second group, I can pull out a 4, and that leaves me with y minus 3. And we knew we were on the right track when the inside of the parentheses match. So my two factors are the outsides, 5y plus 4, and the insides, y minus 3. Let's try that again. So in number 2, I factor by grouping. Group the first 2, group the last 2. Again, notice that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms separated by addition and subtraction. So from the first group, 18x squared minus 30x, I can take out a 6 and an x. Then that leaves me with 3x minus 5. From the second group, I have negative 3x plus 5. Now, the first term is negative, the second term is positive. In the parentheses down here, I notice I want the first term to be positive and the second term to be negative, so that tells me I need to take out a negative 1. There wasn't any other GCF that I can pull out from 3x and 5, but if I take out that negative 1, that gives me a positive 3x minus 5, and now my parentheses match. So I have that with that, and they are matching. So my two factors are the 6x minus 1 from the outsides and the leftovers 3x minus 5. Okay, so now these were polynomials with 4 terms. These are polynomials with 4 terms, but the problem is what happens when we factor a trinomial that only has 3 terms, because I can't group them if there's only 3. So here is our process for factoring with a trinomial. The first thing that I want to do is check for a GCF. So I'm going to look at this, all the terms and see if there's something I can take out of all of them that's a GCF to pull out. After I do that, I need to multiply a times c. So this is my general form of a trinomial, and we learned this, I don't know, back a while ago, ax squared plus bx plus c. So I'm going to take the first term times the last term. That's going to go into an x where the top number is the product and the bottom number is going to be the middle term b. So I have a times c on the top and b on the bottom. Then I solve the x, and we'll talk about what that looks like. So when I solve the x, I need to have two numbers that give me those two things, a product of a times c and a sum of b. Then I put those two factors in the b term. So basically I'm splitting b, splitting the middle. And then by doing that, I'll now have 4 terms, and then I factor by grouping. So those are kind of my steps there. So I want to talk a little bit more about that x, and if you need to draw this picture, you can find a little bit of white space for you that will tell you about that x. So let's just set up the factor x, okay? This is what our factor x looks like. On the top of our factor x, we have that a times c. The bottom of the factor x is going to be the b term. Now we want two things that are going to give us a product of a times c and a sum of b. So there's two numbers here that give us both of these things. They have to give us a product of a times c and a sum of b at the same time. Okay, so let's try some. When I look at number 3, I have 5x squared plus 13x plus 6. Now, 1, 2, 3 terms. Can't group them. I have to have 4 terms in order to group, but I need to know how to make those 4 terms. So the way I do that is by setting up the factor x. I looked for really quick for a GCF. There's nothing that comes out of 5, 13, and 6 all at the same time, so I don't have a GCF here. Now, multiply the A times the C. 5 times 6 is 30. Then on the bottom, I put the B term, 13. So again, I want to find two numbers that give me a product of 30 and a sum of 13. Now, one way that might help you do this is if you just list out the things that multiply to 30. Things that multiply to 30 are 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6, and all of those negative versions, -1 and -30, because sometimes we have negative numbers that we have to find, -2 and -15, -3 and -10, -5 and -6. Now, some of you will learn how to find these two without needing to make this list, but if you need help in figuring out what factors you're looking for, then make the list. So I need a sum of 13, so the next thing I'm going to do is add each one together and see what I get. Well, that gives me 31. That gives me 17. That one gives me 13, and bam, I'm done. So these are my two terms that I want. Now, here's where those two terms come into play. I am going to split this 13x. I'm going to get rid of 13x, and I'm going to put 3x plus 10x in its spot. So the 5 and the x squared and the 6 stay the same. This is going to stay the same. This is going to stay the same. So I have 5x squared, then I put these in the middle, plus 3x plus 10x plus 6. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, factor by grouping, and the rest we know. So from the first group, I can take out an x, and that leaves me with 5x plus 3. From the second group, I can take out a 2, and that leaves me with 5x plus 3. So I have x plus 2 and 5x plus 3. And there's my factored form. So the whole moral of this, the whole point of this is that I somehow need to get my trinomial from 3 terms to now having 4 terms. And once I have 4 terms, I can then factor by grouping. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, what happens if I put 10x and then 3x instead of 3x and 10x? Let's look at what happens here. If I switch the order of these two, what do you think might happen to my answer? So I have 5x squared plus 10x plus 3x plus 6. And I'm going to group again. From the first group, I can take out 5 and x. From the second group, I can take out, oh, and that leaves me with, x plus 2. From the second group, I can take out a 3, and that leaves me with x plus 2. So then my two factors are 5x plus 3 from the outsides and x plus 2 from the insides. If you look at the two factors, 5x plus 3, 5x plus 3, x plus 2, x plus 2. I got the same answer because we can write our factors in either order and it means the same thing. What happened is what was on the inside became the outsides, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. So the whole point of that is you can do it in any order. Okay. Let's try number 4 together and see how this goes. So I have 7x squared plus 29x plus 4. So I'm going to look for a GCF. 7, 29, and 4 don't have any common factors, so I can't do anything with that. But I can set up the factor x. 7 times 4 gives me 28, and I want a sum of 29. So here's my product. Here's my sum. All right, so to get a product of 28 and a sum of 29, my best two options are 28 and 1. And you could go through and list all of your choices, but that's going to be the best one. So I have, again, split that 29, get rid of it in the middle, and put 28x plus 1x in its spot. 7x squared stays the same. Then I have plus 28x plus 1x, and 4 stays the same. Notice that I'm pulling the 4, the original C term. Some people accidentally pull this out of the x. You don't want that. You want the one from the original question. And then I go through and factor by grouping. So I'm going to group the first two and group the last two. From the first group, I can take out a 7 and an x. So I have 7x outside, I have x, and then plus 4 behind. 28 divided by 7 is 4. X is canceled out. From the second group, I can only take out a 1, and that leaves me with x plus 4. But that's okay, because my insides match, so I know I'm on the right track. So 7x plus 1 and x plus 4, those are my factors. All right, we're going to go ahead and stop our video for today at this point. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to hop back to Schoology and take that little quiz, and I will see you all tomorrow.